Okay, let's dive right into this. If you're getting ready for your surveying exams, you know this stuff can be a real headache. Scales, errors, one tiny miscalculation, and boom, everything's off. So today, we're going to break it all down. We're going to make these tricky concepts super simple so they'll actually stick with you when you're sitting in that exam. So, here's our game plan. First up, the big picture. What's the deal with plans versus maps? Are they the same thing? Spoiler alert, they're not. Then we'll get into the language of scale, how we actually shrink the real world down onto a piece of paper. After that, we'll tackle the messy stuff, common errors, and more importantly, how to fix them. We'll look at the different kinds of scales you'll use, and we'll finish up by decoding the super precise Vernier scale. By the end, you'll have this stuff down cold. All right, first things first, before we can even think about measuring anything, we've got to know what we're working on. Are we making a plan or a map? It sounds like a really basic question, I know, but trust me, in surveying, this one choice changes absolutely everything that comes next. Here's the easiest way to think about it. A plan, that's your magnifying glass. It uses a large scale, which means you get tons of juicy detail, but for a really small area, think a single building or a piece of land. It's what we call an orthographic projection, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a perfect top-down view, like you're floating right above it. Now a map, that's more like a view from a satellite. It's a small scale, so you see a huge area, like a whole city or a country, but you lose all that fine detail. It's all about the trade-off, right? Detail for area. You can't have both. So, let's talk about the magic that makes this all work. How do we connect what's on the paper to the real world? Well, that's where scale comes in. It's the one rule, the secret code, that links every single line you draw to an actual distance out there on the ground. The most direct way you'll see this is with an engineer's scale. It's a simple statement like 1 centimeter on the drawing equals 10 meters in real life. Makes total sense, right? But what if you're using inches and your colleague in Europe is using meters? Things can get messy and fast, and that's exactly why we have a universal standard. And that standard is the representation fraction, or RF. And honestly, it's a total game changer. It's a ratio, like 1/1,000. What's so great about it is that it's unitless. That means 1 times anything on the plan equals 1,000 of the exact same thing on the ground. It could be 1 inch, 1 centimeter, one paper clip. It doesn't matter. It gets rid of all the confusion, which is why it's the standard pretty much everywhere. Now, you are definitely going to see this on your exam, converting from an engineer scale to an RF. But don't worry, it's super easy. 3 steps, that's it. Step 1, take your scale. Let's say 1 centimeter equals 10 meters. Step 2, get them into the same unit. We know 10 meters is, well, 10 times 100, that's 1,000 centimeters. So now we have 1 centimeter equals 1,000 centimeters. Step 3, just write it as a fraction. 1/1,000, done. Seriously, it's that simple. Okay, theory is one thing, but what about the real world? Because in the real world, stuff goes wrong. Picture this. You draw a perfect plan. It's your masterpiece. Years go by, someone pulls it out of a dusty drawer, but, oh no, the paper has shrunk. Maybe it got damp. Now, every single measurement on that plan is wrong. And that's not just annoying. That could be a disaster if someone tries to build from it. So, how do we fix this mess? We use something called the shrinkage factor, or SF for short. Think of it like a secret key to decode the shrunken map. It's just a simple ratio, the length of something on the shrunken map divided by what its length was supposed to be. Once you have that factor, you can correct everything. And here is the really cool part, and a huge tip for your exam, so listen up. To get the correct distance, you take your measured distance and divide it by the SF. Simple enough. But for area, you have to divide by SF times squared. And for volume, you guessed it, you divide by SF cubed. See that pattern? It's 1 for length, 2 for area, 3 for volume. The power always matches the dimension. Remember that. It's a classic exam question. All right, let's tackle another classic blunder. This happens all the time. The map is perfect, no shrinkage, nothing wrong with it. But you grab the wrong scale. You measure a distance using a ruler that was meant for a totally different drawing. Whoops. So now what? How on earth do you fix that? Well, good news. There's a formula for that too. It's another clever ratio, of course. Basically, you take the length you measured and you multiply it by this fraction. The RF of the wrong scale on top divided by the RF of the correct scale on the bottom. And just like we saw with shrinkage, if you're trying to correct an area, what do? You square that whole fraction. It's the same pattern again. See? Once you get the logic, it's easy to remember. Okay, so we've covered the theory and we've talked about fixing mistakes. Now let's get practical and look at the actual tools of the trade. What kind of scales are surveyors actually using out there in the field? So the two big ones you'll see are the plane scale and the diagonal scale. A plane scale is pretty basic. Think of it as a ruler that can measure two related units at once, like meters and, say, decimeters. Pretty straightforward. But when you need to get really precise, you bring out the diagonal scale. This thing is clever. It uses a little trick with diagonal lines to let you measure a third, even smaller unit, like centimeters. So you're getting meters, decimeters, and centimeters, all from one scale. It's all about adding that extra layer of precision. But what happens when even the diagonal scale isn't precise enough? What if you need to measure something that's in between the tiniest marks on your ruler? That's when you call in the superstar, the Vernier Scale. This thing is incredible. It basically lets you read the empty spaces between the lines. It's not magic, but it sure feels like it. You'll run into two main types. There's the direct vernier, where the little sliding scale goes in the same direction as the main scale. Its divisions are just a tiny bit smaller. Then you have the retrograde vernier. This one's a rebel. It goes in the opposite direction, and its divisions are a tiny bit bigger. So the two things to look for are which way do the numbers go, and are the divisions smaller or larger? Okay, here is a golden nugget for your exam. I mean it. Write this down. Even though these two verniers seem opposite, the formula for their precision, what we call the least count, is exactly the same for both. It's just S divided by N. That's it. Where S is the value of the smallest division on the main scale, and N is how many divisions are on your little Vernier scale. They might try to trick you with this on the exam, but now you know. The formula doesn't change. And just to show you how powerful this is in the real world, that number, 20 arcseconds, that is an insanely small angle. It's the typical precision, or least count, of a theodolite, which is what surveyors use to measure angles. The only reason they can read something that tiny is because of the Vernier scale. It's what makes building skyscrapers and long bridges to pinpoint accuracy even possible. So we have gone from big picture plans and maps all the way down to the tiny, tiny details of the Vernier scale. But I want to leave you with this one question to think about. In surveying, why does every single fraction of a millimeter matter so much? Because a tiny line on a piece of paper becomes a massive steel game in the real world. A small mistake in your math could mean a bridge doesn't line up or a building isn't safe. That's the real weight of what you're doing. And that's why getting this stuff right is absolutely everything.